Howdy, 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 and thank you for joining me tonight. Good to see a lot of channel friends and family here tonight. Thank you so much for being here. And you all know it's a Sunday night, which means it's one of those nights we get to bring in our old pal, pretty much the number 2 on the channel here. And I'm sure he has his weather report for us as he needs to. So let's bring in Clearwater Chad. How we doing,
Hey.
Chad?
Oh, good. Thanks for having me. All right, we'll get right to work. We got a lot of work to do, Poe.
Oh, yeah.
Weather in Clearwater, Buffalo is 55 degrees. The precip is at 10%. The wind is at 2. And Roscoe advises from the Sky Chopper it's 96% humid, Poe.
Oh, he is loving this warm weather, that's for sure. He has been going. We put him outside. I have to keep bringing him back in because he, well, like earlier, went to go out and take care of some stuff out back. I go walking out. There's 2 huge red-tailed hawks out there. And, of course, Roscoe, he looks at red-tailed hawks like they're new friends. They don't want to be friends. So,
No, they
yeah,
could
that
scoop
is.
him up, couldn't they?
What's that?
They could scoop him up, couldn't they?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Got my Niagara Falls Eclipse shirt on tonight. So,
Nice.
yeah, when we went over, and for those of you, I know most of you probably saw it, the wife and I went over to Hamburg, New York, where we met up with Clearwater Chad and his son, covered the eclipse, and then the very next day we were in Niagara Falls, got to spend the night there. There's the awesome Seneca Niagara Resort Casino there. We're not casino people, but when you're someplace like that and you have a casino around, if they have a resort, that means they're going to have a really nice hotel there. So you get real good deals on excellent hotels and just a good time. And while we were there, we were hitting all, there's like 5 bazillion shops down there that you can go to, and one of them had these shirts, and the wife's like, let's just go ahead and get them. So I figure, you know what, let's just go ahead and wear it since we're going to have our boy Chad on tonight. So let's see here. We got Sir Crepitus is in here tonight. Matt Elliott is with us. Laura Waldy. Laura is one of my awesome mods. And Laura, something's weird. When you first logged in, the first time you came in a chat, you didn't have your wrench, but then a little bit later you do. So we might have to check in this up there, make sure everything's cool with that. Selena's here. Donna Marie. Pause for America. Well, let's see. Yeah, talking about Nancy's arrest there in Chicago. There's a lot to that. I'm going to go over it again. I want to watch that video a little more clearly. I want to check everything out. It's one of those things where I don't want to come in saying something and not have everything straight before I do it. So let's see. Debbie P. Hey, Dusty Soda Fountain's here with us tonight. All right, make sure we're not missing anybody. Make sure we don't have that little British midget. What's her name? Farrell Cheryl. Hey, Kenneth, what's going on? Tiff 45. How you doing tonight? All right, make sure. People get mad at me. Why do you read everybody's names when you start your lives? I do that while we're letting everybody catch up with us. That's the big thing about it, folks. It's not a matter of, number one, everybody here is part of this channel. They're part of the reason why I do this. And I like talking to everybody. So, Mona Englert, Fat Grammy. Let's see. Oh, okay. I was like, what in the world? Lisa Robinson. Making sure I'm not missing the Xenu Zoo. Welcome back. Hey, Psych on the Rocks. What's going on? Verity, Grandma Matilda, Shannon Gregg, Haggis Basher. Let's see. Phyllis Vance, Kelly Williams, and Sarah Bauman. All right. Well, wait a minute. There's even more. Oh my goodness. You see, we got a really, really shady one in here right now. Oh my gosh. Joel McCoy. Hey Joel, how's it going? GGGism. That's a pretty cute name. Make sure we're not missing anybody else before we get rolling here. Gary Mackey, another one of my amazing mods. Working tonight, recovering from multiple days of chasing. Wore out, so hey, you're here. That's the big thing. Let's see. red letter day at my house. I found a pocket knife I lost 15 years ago. It was right where I dropped it. Well, I bet it is.
Nice.
Let's see. That car I wrecked is right where I wrecked it. So hats off to you. Cooler by the Lake. Welcome. Grace and Faith are all welcome back. Shelly Kelly, Canadian girl. What's up, eh? Audit Golden Era, just a Northern girl. Make sure we're not missing. Oh, Bunny C. Howdy, Bunny. Mandy Gonzalez is here, and Mandy's been a member for 2 months now. Awesome. All right, let's make sure we're not missing anything. Cool. And let's see. Yep, I've already said howdy to Sir Crepitus. That's okay. You're here. That's the big thing. So before we get too far into this, we got to put the disclaimer out there, and that is the fair use disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by the copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. The copyright laws of the United States recognizes a fair use as a copyrighted content under 107. All right, so what we got going on tonight is I've got some clips that I want to show you, want to talk about everything that's been going on. And, we're going to start you off. This first one comes from NBC News. Everything that I have listed in the comments there, everything I have listed in the comments, so you can go and check it out for yourself. Let me make sure I got the right one there. There we go. And let's full screen it and let's take a listen.
Today, we're launching a new series, Simply Explained. We're taking a complex idea, problem, phrase, or topic and explaining it, well, simply. I want to start with a term you've probably heard a lot lately. It's called swatting. It's happened to lawmakers, celebrities, even the White House. But what does it actually mean? Let's kick things off with our first installment of Simply Explained.
Simply Explained.
Let's explain swatting. It's a practice where someone makes a false emergency call claiming there's a hoax threat, all in an effort to elicit a SWAT team-like response. Put simply, it's like a prank call, but one that can turn deadly.
28-year-old Andrew Finch, a father of two, was shot and killed by Wichita police Thursday night.
Even the White House was swatted, a 911 caller falsely claiming there was a fire.
94 response for fire in the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest.
Law enforcement officials now say there's been an alarming rise in the practice.
A deeply disturbing spike in threats against those who serve the public.
Recently, a long list of politicians on both sides of the aisle have been targeted by the practice. It's hit celebrities too, like Nicki Minaj, Justin Timberlake, Miley Cyrus, and others. Influencer JoJo Siwa even saying she would.
How do they find out where these people live? That's something I find interesting.
For coming out as LGBTQ.
I don't know who JoJo Siwa is, so I don't know that one.
Our house has been swatted 42 times now.
42 times police actually come in some form to your door.
42 times.
Quick history lesson.
We have a report on phone freaks.
Back in the 1970s, phone freakers would manipulate phone systems to make free long-distance calls.
I've invested about 20 years of my life in phone freaking, really. And
now, see, if you're not old enough to remember this, how about you, Chad? You used to have to wait till like after 7 o'clock at night if you were going to call someone who was out of state, a few counties away or anything, because that's when the long distance rates went down. And I mean, if you had someone you wanted to call and they weren't in your area, mom and dad were going to put a whooping on you if you tried making that call before 7 p.m. You remember that, Chad?
I remember in general terms that you couldn't talk long if you had a friend. I had a friend that lived in like Ohio or something. You couldn't talk long.
Yeah, well, the price for, back then for a long distance call was ridiculous, and the phone rates went down after 7 p.m. And I can always remember, we would sit there and watch that clock if we had to make a phone call to a friend that lived out of state, or you had family lived out of state, you had to wait, and you sure enough couldn't be on there very long. But that's just to give us a brief intro into swatting itself. And what a lot of people, it started off as basically prank calling is what it was. There was a young man is actually spending a lot of time in prison over this. And the reason for it is, as they showed there, the dangers that are involved with it are tremendous because you're doing this to create a situation where it feels like it's an actual SWAT call out because there's something going on and it's a very dangerous situation. Police are on high alert on these kinds of things. Yeah, Matt, the phone was a lot of phones were wall mounted. You had the phone was mounted on the wall, or you had the ones that sat on the thing. You had the dial type spinning to get the numbers in there. You remember those big 30-foot long cords people would put on their phones to be able to go from one room to the next? Oh my goodness. The party lines, or if you're on your phone, if you're on a phone upstairs and someone could pick up the phone downstairs and listen to what was being said. Oh my goodness. Let's see. JoJo Siwa was on TLC show Dance Moms. Well, that's probably why I wouldn't know who JoJo Siwa is then. That's certainly not a show I remember I ever wanted to watch. Hey, Anna, thank you for being here. Mountain Princess. Remember having to wait. My school friend lived in another town. It was considered long distance. Absolutely. That was a big thing. Hey, green-eyed ladies here. Welcome, green-eyed lady. Let's see. So a rotary dial payphone in a hockey rink in 96, 97. The city that I originally retired from, they had one of those old phone booths down in the lobby of the city hall, the kind that you could actually, the door was rounded. So when you pulled it, it closed in around you like that, but it had the old dial, the old rotary phone in there. And that was pretty crazy. So when you're talking about swatting, basically, like I said, it started off like a pranking thing, and there's a long history, but basically there's a young man who became like the guru of swatting, and he was doing it to people all over the country. And a lot of what he was doing had to do with video games. And now, if I remember this correctly. And so what he was doing was he was calling in these calls saying these incredible stories. People are being held hostage, all these. I mean, it was just ridiculous what was going on. Took quite a while. And what it ended up getting him in trouble was he was bragging about it. And that's what got him. Dastardly, we had one up till about 4 years ago. And then finally, because we never used it, we just got rid of it. Let's see. Electric Boogaloo. Hey, Chad, listening while watching on Catch Up.
Excellent.
Janet Rexford's here. Hello, Janet. But so, when these folks call in a swatting type of event, they're going to look to make it as outrageous and incredible as can be. And the thing is that when these things happen, you're taking officers that are on the road. Not every city has the ability to have a SWAT team. So it's going to be the officers that are on the road that are going to have to respond to this, and they're going to have to be the ones that have to handle it. So you're coming, and I've talked about it numerous times about how you're coming off one call going directly to the next one. And if your day can just be a complete mess. And the next thing that you know, you're getting sent into the situation where there's a report of a hostage situation, active gunman, those kinds of things. And, you're going to have to prepare for that. And so a lot of departments, like with myself, I went to an actual training encounter for it. I think it was a 3-day training that we went to, and it was literally called Active Shooter, where we went through scenarios of, first we did a lot of classroom where we're talking about what we're going to be doing, the different kinds of techniques that you're going to have to use for these things, how to clear buildings, how to get in there and extract victims, things like that. And then we went into what was called a live fire drilling. We went out to a range where we actually practiced with our duty weapons, and we over and over and over thousands of rounds, just making sure you're proficient in what you're doing. Once we were done with that, then we got into these, best way I can describe it is if you watch the old news plays from in Afghanistan or in Iraq, or over there where all of the trouble's been going on in the Middle East, where we've had the heavy military involvement. You see the folks out there that are the ordnance disposal people. So if you see those outfits, they're these huge outfits with they got the big clear front on it. It's got the oxygen lead onto there and everything. They're like a big closed-in suit. We had to don something like that, and we were using what was called simunition, where they would take a 9mm handgun and they would replace critical components in it with a different type of mechanism. And that was specifically because what we were using was very low powered as compared to an actual round that we would use. And the rounds were loaded with little paintballs. And so when you would go in and you would do these live fire scenarios inside these buildings, around homes, all these things, we did it on a military base in a very enclosed area there. But what we would do is we would go through there and we would act out scenarios. And then once we were done with the scenarios, and they had cameras everywhere, so they were recording and they were watching what you were doing, when you came out, they would critique everything that happened. And so you're literally going through run after run after run after run through these. And the whole point of it is that in military, law enforcement, fire, EMS, there's something called muscle memory. So what you're doing is you're going out and you are practicing these things over and over and over again, so that when you come into a real life situation that you've been practicing for time and time again, you're not fumbling around going, oh, what do I do here? What's step 3? What's step 5A? What's step 7C? No, it's muscle memory. You're going through it without you're not actually having to think it out. You know what you're doing because you're continuously training in this stuff. And that's what's very important for law enforcement, to do these kinds of things, especially if you don't have access to an actual SWAT team. Here in Wayne County, Michigan, where Detroit is at, they do have a SWAT team which is based through the sheriff's department. But the problem is you're looking for a call out time between 45 minutes and an hour before they could get on scene. And I've been in active situations where the SWAT team has been needed. And thankfully, if you have an officer in your department that's part of the SWAT team, they can take over, and they can, because of the extensive training that you do, they can take over. How to follow the lead on what's going to happen. The lead through where you're putting your hand on the officer in front of your shoulder and you're aiming things away, and how you're calling out, your hand signals, those kinds of things. And it's good when you have someone like that. You don't have to rely on waiting for this team to show up to get there, up to an hour from what's going on. And Lord forbid that there's another similar incident that's happened before yours and the SWAT team's been called out. Now, what are you going to do? So, these are all things that are very important. So officers are trained in a lot of these things, and they go through extensive training and making sure that they're proficient and ready to go with this. So when it comes time that something does happen, let me say this, even though we go through all this training, we go through all of this, we pray we never have to use it. But unfortunately, in my career, I've had to use it numerous times. That's just how it is. And I see Lori Plays is here with us tonight. Lori can tell you there's a lot into this. There's a lot of training that you have to do. And and the nice thing about it is that thankfully law enforcement is learning, is evolving as it goes. All right. So when you get the initial call out, you get the 911, or you get a call into the non-emergency number, and they're going to give you the story that there's something going on, and that it's a very dangerous, very volatile situation. People's lives are at stake. A Mountain Princess says, the former corrections officer. Yeah, and I'm sure you go through very similar training in that line as well. The only difference is yours, generally you have a more blueprinted kind of format as to what you have for the spaces you're going through. With us, we're going in absolutely blind. We're going to a home or a building we may never have been to. So we're having to look, these are all things we have to take into account. And let me break it down. You get the call in, whoever is on dispatch, whether your department has a dispatch officer that's what they do, or in the case with my department, it was whoever was the commanding officer. Is generally a sergeant or a lieutenant who's in command for the shift for that day. The call is going to come in. They're going to try to extract every bit of information that they can from the caller. One of the things that you learn is you want to keep that caller online as long as possible. You want to get every piece of information, because it's the lack of information that could lead to a loss of life. So you have to be very careful in what you're doing and how you're getting that information. Next thing you're going to do is, while you're on that phone with that person, as for me, what I would typically do is, if I had another officer that was in the station with me, I am going to, as I'm writing everything down, I've got that other officer reading my notes as I'm going along with it. They are on the radio and they are dispatching from there. Then as it continues to go on, we're getting the other departments in the area involved as well, seeing if they have cars that they can send over to assist us on this situation. We're going to roll up about a block away from where the incident location is. And the reason for that is that's going to be our meetup point where we are going to muster for this situation. We're going to go through it. We're going to start looking at everything possible about it. Now, with me, I always kept a map of my city in my my call out bag that I carried with me. So we would go in, you could pull that map out and you could look at what you've got all around there. If it's a residential area, what you've got to do to secure this area, all the different things. What are the alleys? What are the access points? What are the escape routes? What is going to be the routes that you're going to have in case you need EMS on scene to handle anything that's happened? Yeah. I have never watched SWAT, the TV show. Never. I have no interest in that show whatsoever. First off, I can tell you, number one, ain't nobody on the SWAT team as pretty as they are on that thing. All right. Number two, SWAT teams don't get called out every 32 minutes. It's just that simple. Maybe LA will get a 1 or 2 runs a day for their teams, but my goodness, I mean, it's just crazy. And not every single call out is a world-ending event. And everybody, if you were fortunate enough to get a gifted membership by Sir Crepitus, make sure you say thank you to Sir Crepitus. Just such a valued member of the channel here. And thank you so much, Sir Crepitus. I really appreciate that. But let's see where it was at. Okay. We're going to muster up, and generally whoever's the highest ranking person on the road at that time is going to be the officer OIC, the officer in charge. And so generally what would happen if I was on desk as a sergeant or lieutenant, I would put the next highest ranking person on the desk and have them take over command of dispatch and everything like that. Next thing I would do is I would go to the scene myself. I would take command of the scene, and then we would start going over what's happening at that point. And Mona Engler, thank you so much. If you got one from Mona, make sure you say thank you to Mona. You guys are amazing. So once we roll out from that point, we're gonna discuss everything we have, every bit of information that we have, and if we have an officer that can do it, I want to try, especially if it's in a daytime run, I want to try to get one of the detectives out, get them in plain clothes as best as possible, and get out there and try to get us some intel on the scene, do a walk by, something like that. Tell me what's going on. That was one of the nice things about with the drone era coming in, is you can now send a drone up over the scene and take a look at the scene and what's going on there from 200 feet above, but still have very clear and very accurate video of what's going on there. So then at that point, we're going to make our approach, and then we're going to try to establish contact, and we're going to find out what's going on. You're going to go in what we call hot, and that's going to be you're going in loaded for bear, basically. And you go in and you handle it as if it's active and it's a credible call. Once you get there, once you get things settled down, that's when you start lowering the intensity level of it. But until that point, you still have to treat it as though everything is active and the information that you were given is accurate. One of the best ways I like to describe how this works is how we used to get the boom boom threats at the local high school. And basically, there were students at the high school who realized if I call this in, they're going to shut the school down for the day. I'm going to get a free day off. And one of the thing, probably the thing that stopped it more than anything was when they realized they were going to have to stay over for their summer break and continue going to school to make up for all the days that they had spent because of these boom boom threats that were coming in. And we would get them from anything from a phone call to a relative, a phone call to the school itself, a phone call to 911 dispatch. Even one time we had a female had gone in the bathroom and used her lipstick to write the threat on a mirror. And we had to, so what we're going to, we would have to keep going. Test day, Lori. Yeah, test days were big ones for that. But we would have to go in and we would have to handle it the same way every time. We would make contact with the school system, get in touch with the administrative office, and then we would turn around and get the security on the line for the school. Start getting all the students out of the school immediately. Then we would go through in a systemized search pattern, and we would literally go through everything, trying to make sure that we didn't have any actual boom booms in the building. And the reason why I'm saying that is I'm trying not to get this video taken down. At a certain point, we started realizing, we can't expend all of this in personnel time and the time, because every time we would do it, it would be 1 to 2 hours we'd be spending at this school. And every one of them was a false alarm. Green-eyed lady, like I was saying, every city, not every city is going to have its own SWAT team. And in a lot of places, what they're doing is they are literally taking 1 or 2 officers from a department, and then they're going into a regionalized SWAT team. We realize that we're going through this, and we have, these are false alarms that are being called in. And, we're trying to figure out how we can maximize our response to it without leaving the rest of the city unprotected at the same time. So working with the state police, the county sheriff's department, the SWAT team, we started going in with training of the school employees, the school security team, those kinds of things. So when these threats came in, you didn't have to have every single police car in a 20-mile radius coming up and responding to these calls. And the school staff were able to go through, and they were able to check things a lot, very quickly. They didn't have to empty out the school every time. So then as the students started realizing, number one, we're not getting out of school for the day. We're not, we're not getting out of the building, period. They're just going to go through and they're just going to start making the rounds through the school, and they're going to leave us all in place where we're at. The numbers started going down. And then when the announcement was made that if we had any more of these kinds of events going on, they were going to have to stay over a day for every day that one of these threats was called in. So things started slowing down, and that's how you have to work it on a lot of different angles. I heard SWAT needs a warrant most of the time. Is that true? It's all going to come down to the situation, the credibility of the threat itself, what's going on. It's always my rule book is it's always best to have your warrant. That's always best. But you can't always get them in time, and they're what's called exigent circumstances, which are basically circumstances that require immediate action. And those are the kinds of times where you're just not going to be able to get a warrant because there's no time. And the more important thing is that you get in there and you save lives. That's what's the most important thing, is public safety. And sometimes you just don't have time for it. Other times, if you do, then you go on and you get through it. And oftentimes it's very simple. Most cities that I've worked for, we have a judge at our call. So I can call a judge up and I could say, hey, I'm sending an officer over with this warrant, and we're going to do out the best warrant we can in a limited amount of time that we have. And that officer will go over and swear it. we can get the warrant approved. Because when we're doing the muster up and we're getting ready, we're getting EMS, fire, whoever else we need in place, that's the time when that warrant request is going to be sent over to a judge, or the affidavit, so that the judge can swear you in on it, sign off on it, and it'll be active. Now, as we're talking about what's going on with these, I'm going to, let's see, we're going to go to another clip here. And because the fact is these are going on almost daily, and we see what's going on with DOA out there in LA.
First at 6, a Wake Forest fan.
And in San Francisco. We saw what happened with Jay over in Salt Lake City. Although I gotta say, those guys were some of the most chill police officers I've ever seen on a situation like that. But I mean, honestly, you show up, you get a call of someone walking around with a rifle, and you show up, and there's Jay. I think Jay weighs like 105 pounds, soaking wet. He's like 6'4", 6'5". You just know he's in a tank top, and I think he was wearing shorts, and he's sitting on the back of his truck. It's very easy to see what's going on. So, that one was a little bit different. But here we go, and this is another one about a family that got caught up.
First at 6, a Wake Forest family caught up in a swatting incident. Police swarming their house with guns drawn and neighbors taking cover.
Yeah, but it turns out this entire thing was a fake call, and authorities say it's a growing problem that can put law enforcement and people in some very serious danger. CBS 17's Maggie Newland is live tonight speaking to that family about this, and I would imagine they had to have been terrified when this all occurred.
Rod and Angela, they were terrified, and police say this call sounded like a very serious situation, but they soon learned that the only crime committed was the swatting call itself.
Wake Forest Police K9, come out with your hands up, or you may be bit.
Okay, do you see that? Let's look at the what's going on here. This one I find very, Lori, back me up on this, or let me know I'm just thinking a little too deep into it. But, is this guy standing in front of the door in that position? Now, I can see like over here, you have these two guys. They seem to be off the door. And the way I'm judging that is by the angle of the guy's face and the way his arm is right here. You have the second officer come up behind him, and that's how, the only difference that I would have on that situation is normally you like to have the officer behind you have their hand up to your shoulder, so you know where they're at. You have a fourth officer down here who is got their looks like an AR ready to go. One of the things that's really bothering me with this is, where is the line of fire on this, and where are you gonna put that round off to? So I'm really interested. This whole situation just seems very, I don't know, chaotic. And yeah, exactly. Lori could tell you the number one rule is you don't stand in front of the door. All right. You've literally made yourself a target by doing so. This, oh my gosh, this is, if I was command officer and I saw this video of how my officers handled this guy right here in the center is going to be the one that's going to be answering a lot of questions for me. Now, here it is. We have this situation. We have this going on. Now, think about it. If something happens and you have that fourth officer that's down there on the ground directly behind them with that AR, the problem is that if something goes off and a round is let go, where's it going? Who are you going to hit? That's one of the biggest things. I'm sure Lori can back me up on this one, is line of sight and making sure that you're not having crossfire situations. All right. Friendly fire. Yeah, that's an interesting name and all that for you just got done by somebody on your own team. So let's see here, Miss Kim, if they would prosecute these callers, would it slow them down? Would they slow down? One of the big things we've been talking about, and I brought it up a number of times, is that with the Absolutely. Lori's telling it right there. How many times have you seen the bad guy putting around through the door? Okay, that's a huge, big one for me. But with all the new technology that's going on nowadays, you can hide your number so easily, and that's one of the problems there. How many people, they still have what are called burner phones. You can still go into a lot of gas stations anywhere in this country, buy a cell phone that's not going to be registered to any name, buy the phone cards for it to be able to use that phone and still not have that registered under any name. People do it all the time. They do it with cash. But let's remember, those phones are designed for those who don't have, credit cards. They don't have a bank account. They're living paycheck to paycheck, and they're living off cash. So, how do you get a phone if you don't have a credit card? How do you get a phone if you don't have a bank account to do it with? Well, there's got to be a way, and not allowing people to have a phone because they don't have a credit card or a bank account, that's pretty discriminatory, if you ask me. Okay, yeah, Miss Kim, I figured when they swatted me, it was a voice over internet protocol. Yeah, and that's let's see. Yeah, and Thomas, I'm that's what I'm talking about right now, is sometimes you literally cannot get you literally cannot get that information. You can go online right now. There are apps that you can use that will literally, when you make a phone call, it will show someone else's phone number, show someone else, the area code, and show their name as someone completely different. And that's where you need the federal agencies with their long reach that can go deeper into the internet and find out what's going on. Till we can start getting like the Department of Justice and things like that going on, getting into these things, it doesn't help us. We're, a lot of departments just simply don't have the technology to do it. Yeah. And, I literally can sit here on my computer, and there are apps that I can use that I can call from my computer. Well, what's the phone number for my computer? It's not through my cellular service. It's through my internet provider. Let's see. My understanding, last time DOA was swatted, they knew Scientology called and the cops lied about knowing it was them. I'd like to know what proof they have, as to knowing it was Scientology and that the officers lied about knowing it. But let's also remember something, is that when police are investigating a criminal incident, they're allowed to lie to you. They don't have to tell you the truth. Okay. They can lie to you, tell you things that aren't true. But the difference is you lie to them and it's a criminal act. It's obstruction of justice. But let's talk about a case where someone actually did get caught for doing what they're doing. And this one is, let me make sure here, we'll pull this up. This is from ABC News. This was actually 5 years ago, give you an idea, but this is about someone.
A swatting case making national headlines. A defendant in California sentenced to 20 years in prison for making phony 911 calls across the country. One of those calls leading to the deadly police shooting of an innocent man about 1,400.
This is the subject I was talking about, who became famous nationwide for doing the swatting. And this is what happened with him.
Miles away. Here's ABC's Will Carr.
Tonight, the man behind this prank 911 call,
I shot him in the head and he's not breathing anymore.
Sentenced today to 20 years behind bars after pleading guilty for a swatting prank that turned deadly.
I already poured gasoline all over the house. I might just set it on fire.
Tyler Barris has admitted to swatting, calling authorities and triggering SWAT teams across the country to surround the homes of unwitting victims.
Walk this way!
In 2017, Barris thought he was swatting the home of a video game rival after a fight over a bet for $1.50. But police swarmed Andrew Finch's home, an innocent man with no connection to the game. He was shot and killed by police who thought he was reaching for a gun.
There are no words to express the toll.
Okay, so you see how something as stupid as $1.50 bet over a video game turned into someone losing their life. All right. And quite honestly, when I read the story about this young man and why he was doing it, he was literally doing it for fun and to get at rival video game players. That was what was going on with him. And it's sickening. And even after he, it wasn't until he realized he was going to do 20 years in jail that suddenly it became real to him. A family lost a family member that devastated this family. And the thing is the people that are swatted, if it's your first time, it is so traumatic to you. Not everybody can be like me and Lori, where we have been there. We have been faced down with weapons. We've had to go into those situations. Not everybody can be like DOA, who is continually being swatted and having to deal with this. The thing is that your average person they're going to freak out. They're not going to know what's going to happen. You got to remember, raid type situations, SWAT call-in situations are made to be disorienting. You disorient the subject and it's easier to take them into custody safely. So you take a situation, you get a family sitting down to dinner, all of a sudden their entire house is being lit up by lights, police lights, the searchlights, the spotlights, all that. You're sitting there with your spouse and your children, and suddenly all this happens. You've got someone over a PA that is barking orders at you. How are you going to respond to it? I know a lot of people like to sit there in armchair quarterback and go, I would do this, I would do that. You do not know until you are in that situation. And that, that's the thing is a lot of people like to brag. A lot of people like to talk and say, oh, I would do this, I would do that, I'd handle it this way, I'd handle it that way. Well, when have you ever been through this? Well, I never have, but I know me. No, you don't. No, you don't. There are a lot of people that I've known that have gone through the police academy, thought that they were going to be these awesome top of the line police officers that were going to go out and save the world. The first time they get into a real serious incident, they lose it all. All right. I've seen officers literally throw up on scenes. I've seen officers literally run and hide. I saw an officer one time climb up under a car as much as he could because he was terrified. All right. These are things that happen, and these are trained professionals who should be able to handle these types of incidents. So, and regular everyday family sitting down to dinner, going to be something completely different. Someone who is out and they are doing peaceful protesting, First Amendment auditing, and it's the first time this happens to you. You're not going to know what to do. You're not going to know how to react. You don't know how you're going to do it. There's, something I like to say, the proof is in the pudding. All right. So, that happens, and it will run through your mind time and time and time again. Some people experience PTSD from it. Others, they're just continually always worried about what's going to happen. Other people are able to deal with it, and they're able to formulate, okay, next time it happens, this time maybe I can stop myself from being on the ground on my face with my hands cupped behind my back for 2 hours. Different things that are going to happen. And there's like I said, there's a lot of people say, I know how I'm going to handle this. But until you actually get into that situation, you don't know. Let's see here. I'm looking here. What's this? Miss Sunrise Dawn. It's your first time seeing Poe. You're really going to like him. Awesome. And Chad doesn't talk a lot, but he's pretty awesome too. And Chad knows he'll jump in when he wants. Yeah. Here's the thing, Maddie, is that in that situation, the victim made some kind of movement, we call it a furtive gesture, that caused at least one of the officers to believe that they were reaching for a firearm. And that's where that came from. And that's what I'm talking about, folks. If you are put into these situations, first off, number one, I'm not an expert. I'm telling you about what I know. But, think about it. You have amped up officers who are coming to this scene that, quacks 1978. That's right. No one knows until they're in that situation how they're going to react. But the sad thing is you get a lot of people that like to brag about how tough they are and all that. And, it's generally the ones that sit there and go, if I was there, I'd kick all the cops' butts. They're usually the first ones that start crying. Okay. It's that simple. You get a lot of people that like to talk tough, and when it hits the fan, they ain't as tough as they think they are. All right. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not Superman. I am not the toughest man in the world. I know I'm not the toughest man in the world. I have had my butt kicked many times in my life, and I know that I'm probably going to get at least one more before I leave this earth. Okay. I'm not the toughest person on the face of the earth. It's that simple. But I will stand my ground and I will do what I got to do. All right. But I can tell you this. Just recently you saw that I was in Battle Creek at Battle Creek Squirrel Squad, Bobby Joe Kellogg, and we were over there. We're doing First Amendment auditing of the Scientology building there. And we went over to a place called the Hart Building in downtown Battle Creek. And if you haven't seen that, I've got it up in my lives. They basically bought this building, and back in 2018, there was this grand thing, how they're going to turn it into this huge things that was going to be this grand. I think they were trying to make it an ideal org. Okay. While we're out there and we're walking around, and let me tell you, you got to watch that video because it was disgusting what we saw and how they had let this building go. Because in 2018, they're talking about how all these grand things are going to do to it. Today, you walk by and the marble is peeling away from the front of the building. You look inside, it looks like something out of a movie. And hey, you got a moth in there, Chad.
I know. I'm not happy about that right now, Poe.
The other night, I don't know what happened. I was doing a live stream. I looked up and there were gnats. Well, we found out Roscoe standing out at the front door with the porch light on got covered with gnats and brought them in with him. And it drove me nuts because I can't stand that stuff. But that you got to deal with that with the dog. I can't tell you how many we use the flea and tick stuff on him, but we almost always find a tick on him somewhere.
Wow.
And that's because he's just got to bury himself into every bush he can get into. Fire department call outs are generally referred to under the swatting thing. It's going to be basically the same thing. It's going to be a false emergency call sent in. Now, whether it's going to be a literal swatting where they're going to be calling out the SWAT type tactics for it, or it's going to be a fire response, it's still going to be under the same thing. It is a false alarm that is called a false emergency situation. Love Mandy, would it be hard not to be amped up going into that? It would be hard not to be amped up going into that situation, but couldn't they protect themselves well enough so that they could double check, re-verify? You know what? Here's the problem, Maddie, and the problem with it is that, and I'm not saying this is you, so don't take it as the wrong way. Everybody wants to armchair quarterback, but the fact is that when you're in those situations, your adrenaline's pumping, your heart's going 1,000 beats a minute. You have all these other people around you who are in the same state you're in. Then you have the people inside the building, the home, the structure, whatever you want to call it. They're in a very heightened state. So, everybody likes to say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do this? Let me ask you a question. Round just went off. How long did you have to re-verify what happened there? How long did you have to recertify or double check everything that's going on? That's the problem when people like to armchair quarterback these things. If you remember about the airline pilot who had to land the flight out of New York, and what is that? What river was that he had to land it in, Chad? Do you remember?
What was it? The question, Poe?
the airline pilot, they were taking off. He took a bird strike and had to land it in the river there. You remember that one?
No, I don't remember that one.
Well, basically, this guy, he takes off. He has a bird strike. He's unable to make it back to the airport because he doesn't have enough airspeed to do it. So he decides to what they call a ditch into the water. And that's basically land the plane in the water. Does so successfully, saves everyone on board. There's a huge national inquiry from the FAA or whoever's doing it, and they're nitpicking every little second of what happened. And they're doing these simulations of how that incident occurred. And every time they showed in their simulations that they had time to go back, they had time to make it back to the airport. Everything was good. He says, hold on, add 10 seconds to it, because that's how long it took to realize that we had lost the engine or engines, where we were at, and reformulate to get back. Now, this was a multi-year investigation that went into this, and they actually had him before some big review committee or something like that. And what happens is when they add the time, and this actually played in with the actual radio response time and everything that went on with that, they found that when they added the time to where they decided to make the run back and they realized that they couldn't and they were going to have to put it down in the river, he was spot on. So that's one of the problems you have is that a lot of people like to sit. Hudson, thank you. I wish I was keeping up with everything. What was it? Hudson, Sully. There we go, Sully. So when you think about that and you realize, and a lot of people were very angry and they hated the guy who portrayed the federal investigator. That investigator is doing their job. They're doing what they're supposed to. And, if you're the one who's being investigated, yeah, it doesn't leave a real good taste in your mouth. But the fact is that there has to be someone has to do every job. Those federal investigators look at this stuff and they have to go through every aspect of it. In that situation, they didn't do a proper simulation or recreation of what happened. And the federal agency that was looking into it ended up looking very bad because of that. So this is one of the problems where they, when people think, well, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? Why didn't they do this? Sometimes you just don't have time to do it. And oftentimes you just don't have time to do it. And in that situation where you have multiple officers, as we're talking about, where that man lost his ability to be here with us anymore, you have multiple officers. They're not robots. You are, as much as you try as a command officer, you cannot always rein them in, keep them under control. There's always that wild element to it. And things just you can't control it all. As much as we would like to, as much as we'd like to say that we can, you can't. The only time you get situations where it's more controllable and officers react a certain way is when they're in an actual SWAT team or they go through. And this is why one of the biggest things I talk about when I'm talking to command or to cities about law enforcement and reaction and how things happen, the number one thing I talk about is training. That's how you start to move away from these situations where you have an officer who lets off a round when they shouldn't, those kinds of things. That's, it's all about training. The more that they have built up in their training, the more that they are used to the scenario that's going on. It's never going to take the place of the actual live situation, but what it's going to do is it's going to help to build them up to when that live situation happens. And I can tell you, when we went to that active shooter school, one of the big things that really made an impact on each and every one of us is when we donned those suits and we went into that building and we went in live and active, and we were literally confronted with the situation that was going on. And believe me, it was 90-some degrees. We're inside these big, heavy suits. We're sweating to death, but it felt so real. And I could tell you because I had already been in situations like that, and it felt real. So it's very important training. And as we go further and further into how society is right now, with cities unable to fund their departments properly, if they're unable to fund their departments properly and we have departments shrinking, then they don't have the money to increase the training. And that gets to be a real problem. And everybody say howdy to Bobby Joe Kellogg. As I said, Bobby Joe and I got out just a couple days ago. We did some First Amendment auditing over in Battle Creek, Michigan. Was awesome to get out there with her. Had a great time. So getting back to where I was, Bobby Joe and I were coming around the Hart building. We look over and we see two police officers parked in a lot, the lot next to the Hart building's parking lot. And I said, we need to go over. We at least need to make contact. So we go over. First thing I do is I put my phone down so that I'm not coming up and shoving the phone right in their faces. It's not one of those where I'm going, hey, officer, tell me what you're thinking about. That kind of stuff. So we go walking up. Bobby Joe still had her phone active, but she wasn't pointing it directly at him. On top of it, the officers all have their own body cams that they had on. We went up. They were two very nice young men, introduced ourselves, told them what we were doing, and let them know, look, this organization is known for calling in false swatting. And literally the young man's response to me was, we've got more important things to worry about than them calling in a fake swatting. I was talking to Nasty Nathaniel, who is a guru in the world of First Amendment auditing. And I said, hey, Battle Creek Police, pass A+. They did an excellent job. Bobby, what did you think about that? I thought that those young men were very nice, very welcoming, very professional in how they did it. Let's see here. Many like schools, police departments, and fire departments should be funded equally in a perfect world. I know, but you got to remember back just a few years back when there was the very heavy defund the police thing that was going on, a lot of departments are still way behind and they're just trying to catch up. If you look over like Chicago has a severe manpower shortage. And why is that? That's because that whole defund the police thing was going on. Now you look at Chicago and you look at the crime rates and how things are going there. And you literally had Chicago officers that were near retirement, were either taking an early retirement or walking away from the job and going to something else. I can't tell you how many police officers I know that have literally walked away from being police officers to be plumbers, work for Ford, GM, Dodge, any of those. It's the reality of the world that we're in, and it's sad. There you go, Bobby Joe. They were awesome. They were, like I said, very nice, very accommodating, very good young men, and it was an honor to be able to talk to them. So let's talk about what's going on with DOA, what's going on with the other First Amendment auditors and peaceful protesters and how that's going on. As for the incident that happened in Chicago, like I said, I still want to watch. I want to watch that video very carefully. I want to watch everything that's going on with that. And okay. There we go. Zeno Zoo. The St. Louis Police Department is so short on police it takes sometimes 45 minutes to 2 hours or not at all to show up. You look at Detroit, where they have had manpower shortage, officer shortages for many years. And it's not uncommon to call Detroit for an emergency situation and be lucky if they show up in 2 days' time. So, and I can tell you that because I've actually witnessed what has happened with those kinds of things. The fact is that especially in your larger cities, sometimes that response time is ridiculous. Now take it a smaller department where crime rate is increasing and it's, you have one officer that's working in an entire city, and what kind of response times are they going to have? Let's see. Yes. Dastardly. Yeah, I saw that. I haven't gone through it fully on that one. I saw the initial on it, but there are a lot of things I want to make sure I'm checking out on that. All right. So let's talk about police response to these swatting issues. Number one, if the police don't respond and they don't respond appropriately, this is one of those that they call a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. You show up and say it's like with Jay over in Salt Lake City. All right, Jay, Denver Scientology audit. They show up, they don't roll up with 10 cars, have guys jump out, have them on the ground and all that. That was a very, very laid back encounter with Jay. All right. And the reason that was, as I was talking about before, it was very clear that Jay was not doing what he was called in for. All right. He was wearing a tank top and I believe shorts, and he's sitting on the tailgate of his truck, or he's standing there talking to the lady was there with him. It was very easy to see he did not have immediate ability to take possession of a firearm. So that one could be a lot calmer in how it's happened. In the situation with DOA, since he's donned the monk's outfit, that is very hard for people to see what's going on with it. All right. Is that an excuse? No, but it's a reality. If I go up on someone that's purported to have a weapon on them and they're wearing large baggy clothing that I can't see, I'm going to be in a heightened state. Now, in Jay's case, in LA, in DOA's case, it got absolutely ridiculous. The number of times he's been swatted, the number of times that they knew he wasn't doing what he was doing. One of the ones that absolutely angered me the most was the call and I believe the call was that he had a chainsaw. You show up and you don't hear a chainsaw, then that tells you that chainsaw isn't the dangerous weapon that they're trying to make it out to be. All right. What's the need to put somebody on the ground and handcuff somebody? Chainsaws are at least that big. I know because I own 4 chainsaws. I've got one that big and they get bigger as they go. Okay. So to say that he's got a chainsaw out here and he's hurting people, and then you show up, number one, you don't even hear the noise of a chainsaw. All right. Even if it's electric, they're still noisy. All right. And then you look the person that's supposed to be doing it. It's going to be very easy to see whether or not they have a piece of equipment that big in their hands. And you generally got to hold a chainsaw with 2 hands. Okay. So that was absolutely over the top. What I personally think about when it comes to that situation is they're getting ticked off and they're taking it out on DOA. Let's see. There we go. Lori, investigate call, but you don't have to go guns and handcuffs. Absolutely.
Yep.
Let the situation dictate how you're going to act. And that's the thing, is that if you show up and they say it's someone who has a handgun, and you show up and there's a person sitting there and they're standing there in monk's robes, it's very, very easy to conceal that. But once you check them and you see they don't have one on them, they don't have one in their immediate vicinity, you get those handcuffs off of them, you get them back on their feet, and you talk to them and you move forward the way you're supposed to. Why these departments aren't making reports to the Department of Justice on swatting is another problem that I have. They should be making immediate reports to the Department of Justice. It's not like San Francisco and LAPD don't have direct links to the Department of Justice or the FBI. Why are they not making these reports? Why are they not getting this investigated properly? This is how you start ending these things. You start locking these people up. And my favorite scenario on it, well, what do we got here? Let's see. Oh, okay. One of my favorite scenario to think about on this is you get one of the lower level org members who realizes that suddenly they're going to be facing 10 years plus in prison for doing a swatting call. And they're like, wait a minute, let me tell you about my boss who told me to call it in. And then it starts going higher up the chain. That's how you start ending this. It's not arresting the first level person that's doing it. You get their bosses who are giving them the order to do it. It's just like you're going to do in narcotics trafficking. You hit the street level dealer. The street level dealer gives you the next person up the chain. You keep building it, building it, building it. And that's how they end up getting people like your cartel bosses and things like that. You start off and you start moving your way up on it. But until they actually get in there and start making these calls to the Department of Justice, the FBI, whatever you want to call it, and start getting these investigated properly on the federal level, we're talking 7 instances of swatting on DOA. 7 instances. And you're telling me that the Department of Justice isn't looking into this? Why are they not looking into it? Why? Is it because they're not going to get enough television time for it? They're not going to get enough news time for it? Somebody's not going to be able to build a new career off of it? Look at that mayor in Dalton, Illinois, who they have all this proof that this mayor has probably been out there misusing taxpayers' dollars to give herself and her friends these great trips and these great meals and all these things that are going on, has been going through these things, has been doing all this. And here it is, what, 1-2 years later, they're finally investigating it. That's a load of crap, if you ask me. But, unfortunately, that's how the wheels turn with it. But hopefully, as we're talking now, we have 7 swatting incidents on DOA. Finally, hopefully they're going to do something about it. Are they? I don't know. But the fact is that, like I said, the police have to respond, because it's going to be that one time that they sit there and go, oh, geez, it's DOA again. They're mad at him. My gosh, we're going to go over there because he's been writing on the sidewalk with chalk again. And that's the time that there's a real incident that's not involved with Scientology and something happens. And then someone's going to end up not only losing their career, there's probably going to be a few people end up losing their career, but there's going to be people that are going to be facing jail time who should have responded properly to it. And I'm going to tell you right now, being a retired police officer, Lori could probably back me up on this. Officers will 9 times out of 10 do much more than they have to do just to keep themselves from getting in trouble. And that's because no matter what you do, this is why I call it a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Because if you show up and you handle things and you go too far with how you're handling it, you're in trouble. You show up, you handle it the proper way from A to Z. You're still going to have people that are complaining about you because you showed up and did the job that you're required to do. If you don't show up and you don't do it, you're still in trouble. So no matter what's happening, they're still facing the possibility of being in trouble. And that's the thing. So, that's the problem. Were you texting Griff?
False accusation, Poe.
All right.
My lights are keeping me on.
Yeah,
Someone
you got that new light going there,
not...
Mr. Fancy.
I know, right?
Chad, tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I've been thinking the whole time, because I'm trying to see both sides of it. On the one hand, I could picture the police officer, he's just doing his job. I also could picture the guy that you talked about. Unfortunately, what happened, and it happened to him, and he was unalive. But it's like the guy's just at home. He doesn't know what's going on. He's probably half asleep. I'm trying to picture myself being that guy. What did he grab? Was he trying to put a light on? What was he doing?
Right.
So it wasn't his fault
think
either.
about it. You say you start dating a new woman, okay, and her ex-boyfriend is mad that she's with you instead of with him, and then what happens? I can call the police, I can do this. Chad's putting his hands on her and he shouldn't be putting his hands on her, that kind of stuff. And next thing you know, look where you're at. You're on the ground, you're in handcuffs and everything that's going on, even though your girl's sitting there going, no, none of that happened. We just got back from seeing a movie or something, or we just went to dinner. And, those are situations you really got to think about with that.
The few times that I've had interactions with police officers, they've always went really well. They've always been, usually what I do is I try to, not when I was younger, but I'll try to, before the officer even speaks, I'll try to ask him how his day is going and how he's doing. And that usually throws him off pretty good. And he usually forgets about any tickets he was thinking about.
Oh, yeah. I got somebody saying DOA got the police called on him yet again.
Oh, no.
I'm not, let's see here. I see Jay, but I don't see DOA stream on there. but I'm not surprised.
Gotta stop. Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. Well, man, y'all typing in so fast. Po, cops on DOA right now. So let's take a look and see what's going on there.
Right.
You know, have I been unsubscribed from DOA's channel again? I have been unsubscribed from a bunch of channels that I was part of. All right.
That's crazy.
Let's pull it up, see what's going on.
All right. Sounds good.
What the frustration is that there's been numerous false calls about guns. I've been a victim of those calls. You guys did not do anything for me being the victim. All right, so now you're out enforcing your the whole rest of the town is there's people outside playing. Are you allowed to busk in Hollywood? Yes. Are you allowed to busk with a speaker?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what she's doing. So that's what she's doing. So there's no fucking warning if you're okay to and allowed to do it. Yes, I am, because he just bullshitted and said it's a problem. Well, yeah, but you know, he gave a warning. You're on bullshit. So she's got every right to use that busking.
No one said anything.
Yes or no?
You didn't say a warning.
Does she have the right to use the this while busking?
I don't need permission. I've got my courage.
Apparently they have other news in here. That was it.
Don't
forget
about it.
trapped in rooms of 6 people.
Don't
Okay,
forget
I
about
don't know
it.
what's going on in there.
Yeah, but so
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here with this, but
I know we
it
can.
looks
I know
like
we can. You don't have to
the
tell me.
officer has the shaved head to the left there.
So what do you?
Is,
Yeah, okay, thank you.
It's your right.
Now, see, I can tell you right now,
That's not helping.
it's not. That is what is going to happen is, and I'll tell you from experience, I'm in a situation like that. I'm not going to make an arrest. I'm trying to get the situation broke down. And then I got someone coming up to me. They're yelling and they're screaming at me. I'm trying to get things calmed down. Then I've got other people trying to interject into it. You know what? I'm just going to walk away. And why? Because there's no way that you're going to be able to get anything productive out of it.
Did you get the pressure washing trailer over there too? Did you get the pressure washing trailer?
No, I agree with you. I mean,
or was it just mine? You'll get that? All right. That's not selectively enforced laws here.
It looks, Lori, it says something like, you know, so they were talking about using a megaphone while busking and something like that. But, you know, the thing is the point he's making there about, see, that's not going to help either.
No.
All right. But the point that, you know, did you get the pressure washing van over there? Or are you just selectively enforcing? You tell me which is going to be the greater of calls that you have to take. The call of someone with a firearm or someone or a van that has a pressure washing kit in it that's been sitting there for weeks. So where's he going now? But yeah, I would. They may have hit him on the parking, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, I can see his frustration, but it's never beneficial to yell at a police officer like that.
You know, may the force be with you. I just tuned it in, so I have no way of knowing if they're lying to him or not. I didn't see that part, but I'd love to see the proof that you got on that, because here's the thing. I was watching a situation where, but is it singing, Diana, or is it you know, it's any kind of playing music or anything like that? But absolutely, Cookie. Screaming doesn't get you anywhere because nobody listens. I've talked about it numerous times on my lives where I'm in a situation, people are screaming. I lower my tone of voice. I lower it intentionally because what I want to do is they have to stop yelling to hear what I'm saying. And as they stop yelling, they start lowering their tone of voice. Suddenly you feel the atmosphere that is going on start to lower. and it starts getting to a point where you can actively handle things. Now, I'll tell you point blank, if I got called there on a situation about someone armed doing something that was threatening other people's lives, and they go, are you going to do anything about that van with the pressure washer in it back there right now? I'm going to be, no, I'm not here for that. All right. I got called in for a dangerous situation. And that's what I'm doing. But while they're there, you're dealing with somebody, you've got something that's going on. All right. Number one, is that van on private property that you can't get to without a warrant? Is it in a situation where you don't know if it's got a pressure washer on there that's for commercial purposes or not? You know, there's a lot of things to it. And you show up and you got someone who's yelling and screaming at you. They're, you know, you could tell DOA is upset. Does he have a right to be upset? Heck yeah, he does. I am not saying he doesn't have a right, but you know, the thing is that how do you handle that situation? Hey, your van's illegally parked. Get it out of that spot. All right. What happens? He has to go around the corner. He has to be quiet for a few seconds. But that whole situation is just way too explosive. What the officers needed to do at that point was they rolled up. They realized there was no threat to anybody's life at that point. Back away. All right. If you realize you can't converse with the people that you're called there on, you need to just back away. Let that situation cool down. Okay. But DOA needs to demand that this get sent to the Department of Justice. The FBI needs to be notified. And you know what? Let me see if I can get DOA on the phone right now.
Oh, okay.
See if I can get him to talk.
Yeah, good idea.
Let's see here.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I've been texting DOA, and I just, you know, I'm waiting for.
Yeah, he might have a second to call. Yeah. He's probably still in his van. Excellent. That was crazy seeing that live like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing is you watch DOA, you're going to see these things all the time.
Yeah.
It's not funny, but it's literally one of those situations where you just got to laugh because what can you do?
At least they didn't take him down this time, you know. Jeez.
Let's see.
If you can't get him, you can call Levin Smith.
Right. Yeah. One of the first things I'd be doing is I'd be demanding a report made by the LAPD. And the thing is, I would also demand that they turn it over to the Department of Justice, the FBI, because this is just absolutely ridiculous. But the good thing that I see here is they didn't have a complete turnout. You didn't hear any helicopters flying around. You didn't hear any of that other stuff. So, the thing is, DJ, de-escalation is very important, but you can't always de-escalate. All right. You can try what you want and you can make every attempt possible. Sometimes you cannot de-escalate a scene. Sometimes you are better off just backing away and letting things calm down on its own rather than trying to continually try to de-escalate it yourself. Sometimes, as I've said before, the appearance of a police officer in their uniform here in the state of Michigan is considered the first step in. Norman, I have, what are you talking about? ICE policing patrol. I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, I've sent it to him. I've sent a bunch of texts to DOA. I haven't got any responses back, but you know, the thing is that I would love. Absolutely. Lori, you cannot de-escalate while yelling.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I had an earpiece in. I wish he had an earpiece in and I was talking to him directly. I'd be like, dude, stop yelling. Stop yelling. I don't care how mad you are. Stop yelling. In a calm voice, demand a criminal complaint about you being swatted now for your 8th time, and also demand that it's turned over to the Department of Justice. Yeah, I know, but I'm just hoping maybe I might be able to at least talk to him, because this is, this is ridiculous. This is happening so much. But what, they're going to keep doing it because they keep getting a response, and that's how it is. But the sad thing is that, they know that the police are going to have to respond. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to know that it is someone from within the Scientology building that's going to be calling, or someone from within the organization that's calling, because they're the only people that are going to be calling this stuff in. And the thing is, the thing is that they still have to respond. They still have an obligation, especially if there's a potential for loss of life. They have to respond. I'm just glad to see that they're not bringing in the Air Force along with the Marine Corps, slamming everybody on the ground, doing it in a much easier manner than they have in the past. That's one thing I'm glad to see. Yeah, and that's right, Miss Kim. But I think also in this situation, you have, they're starting to come down from where they were. Instead of sending in the entire department with every helicopter they've got to check this out, they're handling it different. This call was against Laura's busking in front of the blue building. Well, I tell you what, they just hate them being out there in front of that big blue, don't they? I didn't see. Did they go inside and talk to someone? That's the thing. I learned about it's going on right here while I'm looking at the chat. So, if they went in and talked to someone, and I went in and talked to the person who called it in, and I have all this proof in the world, I'd be going back in there to talk to that person while I'm talking to him. Says he'll check his messages. Okay, cool. I would go back in there, and the person that I talked to who had said that they had made the call, they'd be in handcuffs on their way to jail. Oh my goodness. Not this call, but many others. Okay, I was just wondering about that. And it also seems like you got different officers. Here's another problem you got, especially in these bigger cities, is you're going to have different officers responding. You're not going to get Tallman there every time. You're not going to get the same crew that arrested Aaron there. You're going to get different people every time, and they're trying to deal with what's going on. Hopefully they're intelligent enough to go, hey, I was just over there the last 4 days in a row on the exact same type of call, and there was nothing going on. All right. Just keep that in mind when you're rolling up. And something that, may even be called for this is do a drive-by, do a pass by while you're watching what's going on there, and make sure nothing is what it seems to be. I mean, yeah, Laura FM's can be loud, but I don't think her voice is a violent weapon. Do you? I mean, so you're mad. She's out there singing and she's doing her thing. But the fact is that if it's not illegal, there's nothing can be done about it. No matter how bad your organization feels about it, that's just the problem. And here's another thing. And Sir Crepitus is talking about this. Sir Crepitus is also retired law enforcement. Officers only know what is spelled out in the call for service. When they arrive, they have no idea what is really going on, because 9 times out of 10, there's much more to it. Or there's much more, or there's much less. And in these situations, like I was saying, and Sir Crepitus, hopefully you and Laurie can back me on this, is that you would hope that officers who have been there and have handled these situations before have enough common sense to go, hey, think about this is what happened with me, so that they kind of preset them going into it. Hopefully hopefully they have roll calls. Not every department does that, but we call them roll calls, and that's a muster before you go out on the road. And hopefully that they're telling them, hey, look, we've been getting these calls every single day from Scientology about these guys going out there and someone's armed, someone's trying to hurt someone, these kinds of things. If this call comes through, investigate it properly. All right. Don't go in everything a blaring and go in and take a look at what's going on with it. Let's see, Haggis Basher, man, I love that picture. I certainly doubt Tallman will leave himself without having his face be seen. I'm like I said, when he arrived there on scene with Aaron, I was surprised he wasn't handing out headshots to everybody. Hey, I'm you saw me in NCIS, you saw me in CSI, hey, my agent's contact number's on the back. And did you see me at the Scientology Christmas festival where I was on stage rocking it out, so that kind of stuff. I certainly doubt he's going to allow himself to be hidden in the shadows. Let's see, Sir Cripidus, absolutely right, but inexperienced officers aren't as wise. Absolutely. That's one of the sad things about it. You get a young one in there and they're sometimes pretty quick on the draw there, and that's when things really get out of hand. Xeno Zoo also sucks for the officer because call after call may put the officer in a so-so mood because they got to be prepared. And that's another thing. No one, a lot of people aren't talking about the fact that, these guys they're coming in. is a hot town. You're going from hot call to hot call to hot call. You aren't going from my neighbor left their trash cans out on the curb on a Tuesday and they're supposed to be put up by Monday evening. You're not getting that kind of stuff where you're getting in the little affluent small towns where people have time to worry about that. And in LA, they're going from hot call to hot call to hot call, which is 911, 911, 911. So who knows what's going to be happening? Sooner or later, this is going to turn tragic for DOA. He needs to ease back on the in-your-face approach. I think one of the things that, one of the things that about it is LA's used to that. They're used to people being right there in their face. No, we didn't talk about that squirrel because, as I said, I want to watch that entire video, and I want to make sure I come in with an educated frame of mind on it. I think it's stupid. I mean, honestly, from what I've seen, arresting for casual grazing of the mammaries. Are you serious? But I want to make sure I got it all right because I'm at a loss for words on that one. Sir Crepidus, I can guarantee you Tallman gets laughed at behind his back by other officers in regards to his singing and dancing at Scientology events. Shame on LAPD for allowing him to do that. And he had an entire LAPD band up there, and I was just like, what in the world? How many other events I'd like to know if anybody can figure that out. How many other events did Tallman do with the LAPD band, all in uniform, performing live? How many other events for how many other organizations did they do? I'd like to know. Debbie Green, DOA not really swatted. Cops called because Laura's singing with a microphone. I don't think her voice is that bad. Chad, do you?
No, not at all.
I don't think she sings that bad.
Yes, I would have preferred if she wasn't doing it when the officer's trying to talk to, DOA. But other than that, it's
Yeah. Let's see. With a microphone, and DOA was there and talking to them. You see cops after several minutes into Laura's video. They come walking up to him, and that's good. At least they're not coming in, sliding the cars to a stop, hitting the curb. That accidental. Lori, Sir Crepidus, if you could enlighten me, I thought assault and battery had to be an intentional kind of thing. I don't get it. Mandy Gonzalez, the LAPD has to know the calls from COS. It's just a bunch of waste of time and not a serious call. It's going to be, there's so many different factors. I'd love to know how many people they've got in their dispatch center that handle all the 911 calls coming in, because if from what I've seen from television, they've got an entire floor of people who are taking in 911 calls, and it's, all you got to do is just give them the address next door, give them the address across the street, give them, 500 feet away, those kinds of things. And suddenly it's not the same call. That's the problem. It's the officers who are showing up, and then you've got the fact you have the multiple shifts that are working. You have multiple differing officers that are responding to these things, and it can be hard. It really can be hard to know. Let's see, Sarah Bauman. I know, Poe, the situation with like I said, I want to make sure I watch everything, because I don't want to come out and I don't want to go, oh, she did this or he did that. You know, I don't want to do those things. I want to make sure I'm educated on it before I'm making a statement about it. That Grammy question, would you please talk with me about this? I need some advice from your wisdom. Yeah, I just let me know what you want to talk about. Let's see. He did a few other events for them. Not sure if he was trying to sing at those. Man, my goodness. Replay comment. The swatter was Casey Viner. Barris was a homeless man. He paid. Wow. And see, look at that, folks. As Louise is saying, this person had a someone who was homeless being paid to make the 911 calls for him. Wow. All right. How do you track that down? That's crazy. There we go. Okay. Sir Crepitus. Yes, I have been screaming at that on other YouTube channels. Lori Plays in Florida. There has to be an intentional act with the intent to do harm. They brought down entire countries before. Look at Marilyn Monroe almost brought down a president. But I don't think physically. That's the thing.
Yep.
Surviving the streets. Chad is official OSA, and he is here to bring down the SPTV community. I don't know how many times I got to say it, that you played a parody of someone in Scientology. Chad, you got any response on that?
Yeah, no, I'll be really nice about it. Because I do play it up really good. Aaron, the reason I call him Levin Smith is because I did it on the first video and he laughed at it.
Oh my gosh!
It's on the playlist under Tampa Brad.
Folks are still going on about that Levin Smith thing.
Yeah, he laughed at it, so I kept doing it, folks. So that's why. But I'm on his playlist under Tampa Brad, so he does. We're on good terms.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that you sat right across from him down there in Clearwater when we were there.
Yep.
All right. Aaron knows you. He knows who you are. All right. He laughs at the fact you jumble up his last name and you do it on purpose. So I know for a fact Aaron thinks it's funny. So not only that, police officers are no longer required to accept private person arrests. Oh, there we go. That is to mitigate false arrests. Why Chicago arrested her is beyond me. My eyes starting to hurt thinking about that thing. Sarah ZG, if Chadwick threw water in on her, is that assault? That can be considered a form of assault. It seriously can. Let's remember, it's not just assault. The actual assault can be a verbal assault on someone. When it comes to actually physically touching, it's considered a battery is what it actually is. We just call it assault because it's, we're cops. We shorten everything up. Public picks up on the things that we say, and it continues on, and it becomes part of vernacular or slang or however you want to call it. But the actual terminology for it is an assault and battery, and you're doing so with the intent to cause some kind of harm one way or another. That's the point of it. Unintentional contact. I think they even changed that here in Michigan a few years back to where it has to be an intentional contact. So again, I'm going to look that up. I just don't know. Yeah. Let's see here. Let me make sure I ain't missing. Whoa.
What do you got now? Oh, wow.
Had 3 teeth pulled on Friday, bit of tooth. Wow. Very sore. I just had one of those. They call them the deep cleans where they have to numb your gums and everything because they're going down deep in there. Ooh, boy, I was hurting for about 3 days. So having them teeth pulled, ooh, boy, I can tell you. My wife, an addict for the dentist, an addict. She loves going to the dentist, loves getting her teeth worked on. Me, no. Went to a military dentist, and that certainly changed my mood on things. Guy that I knew, he's passed away now. Matter of fact, I heard he passed away last year. I used to know this guy. He worked for a trucking company that was out of the first city I worked for. And we were talking one day, he and I were talking, and I could see the side of his face was swelling. And I said, dude, what's going on with you? And he goes, I got this pain in my jaw. It's not going away. I don't know what to do. And I go, you got to go to the dentist. He goes, man, I hate going to the dentist. I said, yeah, but is it better to sit here and be in pain for a week or a month or something like that? Rather than going in and sitting, getting numbed and getting it taken care of. He goes in to see the dentist. Hand to God. This is what we were talking about after he got it done. He goes to see the dentist. He had been in the Army, Army Ranger, Airborne Ranger, had gone to the dentist because his wisdom teeth were impacting. The military dentist removes the teeth. 20 years later, he's working for a trucking company and driving those big gravel trains, and ends up starting getting the pain again. And then it starts swelling, goes to the dentist. They didn't remove his wisdom teeth when he was in the Army. They pulled his 4 molars.
Wow.
And left the wisdom teeth in there. The only reason he wasn't feeling the pain was because they weren't impacting against the molars anymore. You understand why I have trepidation about dentists. So, all right, let's see. Nico, she doesn't have a few favorite musical. Honestly, we don't watch a whole lot of musicals, stuff like that. So I don't know. She's just not into it. What happened to Nance was a booby trap. That's a real good interpretation of it. And here we go. This is one of the crazy things about doing these lives, doing the internet stuff is people pull stuff up like that. Sir Crepidus ain't no dummy. So Illinois Penal Code 720 ILCS 5/12-3 battery defined as knowingly causing bodily harm or making physical contact of an insulting or provoking nature without legal justification. And if I remember correctly, didn't that happen when the guy stood up or tried to go past her? So wouldn't he be the one who who caused that? I'm very interested to know about that. Let's see. And I heard from a reputable source that Laura Waldy is not a true ginger. No, I'm joking. I just someone talking about your red hair there. And one ginger to the other. Battery is the act, and assault is the threat of. Well, the assault can also just be yelling and screaming at someone. I mean, the way it works with that, and it depends on each state law. If you check the musical, there's a guy living in. Oh my goodness, yeah. I'm not going to watch no musical or play about someone going to the dentist. All right, folks. So, back to the topic, and that's crazy about what happened to DOA. I mean, the poor guy. I can understand his frustration, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times you got to put up with this crap before you're about to lose your daggone mind? I mean, it's just sad that it's got to be like that. So, if these situations happen, one of the first things I like to do anytime I'm going to try to do a First Amendment audit or a peaceful protest is I want to make contact with the local police. Sometimes that's not going to be as easy to do, especially like in LA or something like that. But I like to try to make contact with them. It's a little bit different on my end simply because I am a retired police officer, and I'm literally going to go in and I'm going to go, hi, I'm John Poe, retired chief of police. I'm going to be doing some First Amendment auditing of Church of Scientology at this location, or I am going to be doing peaceful protesting. I understand the law. I will either be on the sidewalk or the public easement between the road and the sidewalk. What suggestions do you have for me? Even though I am retired law enforcement, I am unarmed. I am willing to let you check me at this time, check my vehicle, make sure that there's no problem with what is going on.
Very good.
So, the thing is that I'm going to do those things because I want the police to realize, number one, I'm not going to be armed. There's no way I can be armed. It's not going to be within my immediate grasp. When I am on those scenes like that, when I was out with Bobby Joe Kellogg in Battle Creek, the temperatures were at the point, at one point I actually took the hoodie off because it was starting to get warm and I didn't want to be out there, sweating my hind end off. But for the most part, I had a hoodie on, but I left it unzipped and open. So if the police were called and they did approach, it's very easy. I can take it by just pulling on the zipper sections. So it's seeable. All these things I want to do because I want to present myself to law enforcement as being someone who can't be a threat. One of the big problems for me is I'm 6'2", 265 pounds. I'm not a small boy. Even though I'm a fat boy, I'm still big. I'm almost 30 inches across from shoulder tip to shoulder tip. I'm not tiny. Bobby Joe Kellogg can tell you I'm a biggin, and that's just simply how it is. And so for me, I've got to do what I can to present myself in a less threatening, less imposing kind of manner. Chad, you can tell him. I mean, how many times have we met up? You know how big I am.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
always
pretty similar.
Yeah, Chad's not a small one either. We're big boys. So, you roll up on a scene like that, you got two fellas big like us, and that right there in itself can be an intimidation factor. So I'm going to use a softer kind of voice in dealing with them, not until things get cooled down. That's when I'm going to start, with a little bit, I'm going to deepen my voice back to its normal tone and things like that. This is folks, again, I'm not an expert. I am a retired police officer. This is how I would handle it. You're going to handle it how you feel, but I'm just telling you how I would do it. I try to present as little of a threat as possible in these situations. I want law enforcement informed before I get there. Let's see.
Yep.
WYSI, I haven't seen FOIAs for any of that either, but it doesn't mean that they haven't gone in. And you also have to remember that in listening to Aaron Smith-Levin's videos where he was talking about in his situation, if there is an actual complaint made about the situation that's going on, then FOIA goes right out the window. You're not even going to be able to FOIA it anyway. So that may be something that doesn't stand in this situation here. Whether or not she was the aggressor in that and what happened, let's see here. I was trying to go back up. Whether or not Nancy was more aggressive than that person was, I think they called him Chadwick, but I don't know what his real name is. And we've got our own Chadwick right here, so I don't think we need to be worrying about him. But the fact is that for her to be arrested for A and B in a situation where I think it's very clear that it wasn't what it was being reported to be or what she was arrested for. I think we have to be aware of that. And I mean, quite simply, the simple fact of making contact with a mammary is not something that's going to hurt you. I mean, it'd be one thing if she turned and they're so large that it knocked him into the next state, but just the simple contact, that's just going out of hand. To that, okay. Yeah, I mean, why in the world, if the police told Denver they had a call come in from New York on a cell, or from a New York cell tower, I mean, that should tell you right there. If you're in Denver, Colorado, and someone's calling from New York and saying this is going on, how can they honestly know? So the very, very strange. Yeah, Nerman, Wavy Davy does appear to be upset. You know, that's crazy, but you know, these things are happening. One thing I think I can see coming from this is I can see aggravation on the part of law enforcement, and it may be being taken out on the wrong people. It does happen. I mean, we saw what happened with Aaron when he got arrested. So this stuff is a reality. I don't know why Scientology would continue to do it, or people in Scientology would continue to do it, because the simple fact is that when these things happen, it's just that many more people are watching. It's that many more people that are now turning against Scientology. You started out, you had DOA and the Squirrel Squad out there. Now, how many people do you have out there? Now, how many people do you have at every single location where an ideal org is out there now doing lives? Why? It's becoming a massive thing. So, yeah, and I was talking about that before, is that it appears to possibly being spoofing. So, you know, what can you do when you can't prove where it comes from? That's why I said there needs to be a demand that the FBI or the DOJ is brought in on it, because they have much deeper pockets and they have a whole lot better IT tech. So, Chad, you got anything for us before we head out of here, sir?
No, I learned a lot though, Poe. It's a very good information.
Like I said, I'm trying to stay away from the more negative stuff. Even my live tomorrow night, if you think that's going to be negative, it's not. I'm going to talk more about the simple fact of you've got people that are telling protesters and First Amendment auditors they're doing it wrong. And I just want to talk about my thoughts on that and how I think that, you know, if you haven't done First Amendment auditing, you haven't done peaceful protesting, how can you tell someone if they're doing it wrong or not? You know, experience is 9 times out of 10 the best education that you can get for stuff. You know, and the thing is that that's what I want to do, is I, you know, want to continue with trying to be more of an educational kind of voice in these things, and continuing with more of a positive things. It's hard to be positive when a woman gets arrested because someone bumps into her boobs. Okay. It's hard to be positive that she gets arrested because someone walked into her breasts. That's, I don't know, but folks, we have a lot of stuff coming up. Been talking to Jamie Mustard. Hopefully I will have Jamie and Miriam on here within the next week or two, so we can do a live with them and we can get an update personally from Miriam on what's going on. I have been in contact with Miriam Francis, and she's telling me we know that she got the treatment and that it feels like her life is completely turned around. She's feeling great about what's going on with that. So hopefully we'll be able to get her on with Jamie Mustard and be able to, you know, give you the live update here on the channel. Got some other things going on. I am planning out some more First Amendment auditing, some more peaceful protests. No, I'm not a former Scientologist. No, I'm a never in. I've made that clear from day one. But you know, if you're new to the channel, then how would you know that? But you know, thing is, there's a lot going on. I have a friend who's outside the United States has asked me to come and join them. They're going to be doing an actual documentary on cults in the country where they live, and have asked me. So trying to get things together so I could be able to afford that kind of trip and handle what's going on. You know, there's lots of other protesting that we're going to be doing. Going to be hooking up with the Fantastic Five, or the Fun Five. Justin Soda Fountain, Farrell Cheryl, Lori Plays, and Sarasota Jerry, along with myself. We're all looking at making our run to LA and helping out with the Squirrel Squad and the groups out there, and doing their First Amendment auditing and peaceful protests in Los Angeles. Lots of other places I want to be hitting. I also, at some point, want to be able to meet up with Jay from Denver Scientology Audits. I think he's a great kid, and he's doing a lot of great stuff. He's living his best life and doing what he can. And as always, folks, I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. I know your time is precious, and you spending it with me absolutely honors me in ways that you'll never know. So, as we all know, life is short. You get one shot. Make it count.